Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to Bhagavad Gita Satsang. I'm Hari-kirtana, and as always, it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you, an honor to have you here with me. And if you can hear me, as is my usual request, I will ask you to please raise your hands just to make sure. There we go, hands, yay. All right, thank you very much for validating my assumption that I could in fact be heard. Little quick housekeeping business for those of you who are new to the satsang. You can adjust your audio settings and viewing options up in the upper right-hand corner. Need not worry about your mic or video camera. I cannot see or hear you unless you type something into the Q&A or into the chat box. And of course, I'm always very, very happy to receive your questions and comments at any point along the way. So please feel free at any time to avail yourself to that option. Our last class, chapter 11, the Yoga of Divine Revelation, we covered verses 32 through 34. We spoke about time, the dark side of God, as Krishna answers Arjuna's question, who are you and what is your mission here? We spoke about becoming an instrument of divine will and discussed the phrase altruistic evil. That is to say, the kind of evil done by otherwise not psychotic people when they're under the influence of religiously, when they are motivated by some conception of religion that justifies warfare and violence. This evening, we're going to talk a little bit about the role of prayer in yoga, as Arjuna is about to begin offering prayers to Krishna subsequent to his having seen the universal form of the Lord and having had his questions about the nature of that form answered. We'll also talk about what Arjuna is really afraid of, because the universal form being the form of basically death, at least that aspect of the form that Krishna finishes up with, is fearful. But Arjuna knows that he actually does not have anything to fear from Krishna. So what is it that he's really afraid of, other than the fearsomeness of death? So that will be explained in our verses for this evening. Will we begin, as always, with our invocation mantra? So for those of you who are new to transliterated Sanskrit, the dot over the M indicates that we press the back of our tongues up against the back of the roof of our mouths at the same time that we bring our lips together in front. The bar across the top of a vowel indicates an elongated and open version of that vowel, as opposed to a somewhat more closed and truncated version of that same vowel, as will be self-evident, I hope, when I chant and you chant back. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The translation: I offer my respects to the Supreme Person, the Son of Vasudeva, who is the all-pervading transcendence. And once again, in this group of verses, the son of Vasudeva, Krishna's identity as the son of Vasudeva, will play a role. So we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. Just to recap from last week, we finished up with the spoiler portion of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna how the battle's going to turn out, that he has already made arrangements for this battle and its outcome. So in the 34th verse, Krishna tells Arjuna, I have already slain Drona and Bhishma, as well as Jayadratha and Karna, and the other great warriors. Therefore, do not hesitate. Simply fight, and you will surely conquer your enemies in battle. So let's back up for just a second and take a look at this verse. Why has Krishna singled out these particular warriors? Now, he's doing away with any doubt that Arjuna has about whether or not he should fight from the standpoint of whether it's right for Arjuna to fight superiors. You may recall way back in the 2nd chapter, in the 5th and 6th verses, that one of Arjuna's reasons for not fighting was that he would have to fight against elders and superiors, people worthy of his respect, his teacher, his grandfather. Bhishma is his grandfather, Drona is his teacher, and other senior guys. You know, Arjuna is a righteous dude, and he doesn't want to be disrespectful by killing them. So here Krishna is being very, very clear that not only is it already a done deal that they're going to die, but that it would actually be beneficial for Arjuna to be the one to kill them. So let's just take a closer look. The particular verses back in the 2nd chapter, Arjuna says, even though they are motivated by selfish desires, they are still my noble teachers. I would be better off living as a beggar in this world than to live having slain these great souls, who are my mentors. For whatever pleasure I might enjoy, therefore, would be tainted with their blood. And then confusion follows this. Nor do I know which would be better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra who stand before us on the battlefield, then we would surely not wish to live. So, you know, it's not like there's some great love lost between Arjuna and his cousins. They're rascals. They tried to assassinate him and his whole family. But still, the sense of doing something really wrong would be there and would haunt Arjuna and make him just very uncomfortable with the whole proposition of killing these men. All right, so now Drona is Arjuna's teacher, and Bhishma is his grandfather, but there's more to it than just these relationships, because these 4 warriors are understood to be practically invincible. So there's also the doubt of, is it possible for Arjuna to kill them? So let's take them one at a time. Drona, also known as Dronacharya, meaning the teacher, cannot be defeated by any weapon because he's received a boon from Parashurama, an incarnation of Vishnu, or in other words, Krishna himself, that he has complete knowledge of every weapon and knows how to neutralize any weapon that's directed towards him. Back in the 10th chapter, in the 31st verse, when Krishna is telling Arjuna all the different ways that he can be known, all the different kinds of associations we can make in order to remember Krishna, to meditate on Krishna, he says, of wielders of weapons, I am Rama, referring to Parashurama, the incarnation who is the expert wielder of weapons, as opposed to Ramachandra, the incarnation of Vishnu who appears as the king in an entirely different epic called the Ramayana. So how is it then that Drona can be killed if he has knowledge of every weapon and can counteract it? Well, Drona is going to be killed, as long as we've already done the whole spoiler thing, by Drishtadyumna, who is the son of King Drupad and the brother of Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas, who is fighting on the side of the Pandava army. And Drishtadyumna will kill Drona after he sets his weapons aside, technically against the rules of chivalrous warfare. But Drishtadyumna has a vendetta against Drona that is so great that he will even kill Drona unarmed. Drona sets aside his weapons in grief under the illusion that his own son, Ashvatthama, has been killed in the battle. And this is also not true. It's trickery that puts him in that state of despair where he sets aside his weapons. Bhishma also has a boon that he can choose the time of his death. He won't die until he is ready to die. And yet at the same time, there's someone on the battlefield who has the boon that they will be able to kill Bhishma. Shikhandi is the name of the warrior who previously, in a previous birth, was Amba, the princess whose life was ruined by Bhishma, and therefore vowed that somehow, some way, she would find a way to kill Bhishma. You can get the details back in one of our first episodes, one of our first classes, where I give the entire backstory of the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhishma will meet his end on account of Shikhandi being on the battlefield. Jayadratha. Jayadratha's father gave him a benediction that whoever is responsible for causing his severed head to fall on the ground will instantly have their own head burst into pieces. Now, the wording of this benediction really matters, because the precise way of the wording wasn't just that the person who severed the head would have their head burst into pieces, but rather the one who causes the severed head to fall on the ground. The assumption being that if you sever the head, it's going to fall on the ground, and the person who severs the head will also now have their head burst into pieces. But it doesn't work out that way. Krishna reminds Arjuna on the battlefield about this benediction, and Arjuna uses a special weapon. He fires a special weapon that was given to him by Lord Shiva that not only severs Jayadratha's head, but carries the head miles away to where Jayadratha's father is performing a sacrifice, and the weapon just drops the severed head right in Jayadratha's father's lap, and he reflexively sees this severed head and throws it off his lap, and it falls on the floor, on the ground, and sure enough, the one who gave the benediction ends up having his head burst into pieces, having caused the head to fall on the ground. Fun facts of the Mahabharata. Lastly, Karna. Karna was the son of Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, in a premarital experiment of the power of a mantra given to her when she called upon the sun god for the specific purpose of procreation. And she tried to say, never mind, but the sun god said, no, we're both obliged to do this, but don't worry, I can do this mystically and you'll still be an eligible virgin to be married. But she has this child who she spirits away. No one actually knows about him. Karna then is the half brother of the Pandavas fighting against them. And he has a special power given to him. He has a weapon given to him by the demigod Indra that can slay anyone it strikes but he can only launch it once. He can only use it one time. And Karna is forced by circumstances to use that weapon prematurely. He was saving it to kill Arjuna, but he ends up having to use it, and that creates an opportunity for Arjuna to subsequently kill him. So this is how all of these prophecies that are being foretold by Krishna in his form as the universal form end up coming true. And because these particular warriors are understood to be invincible, that's why Krishna singles them out. And he's got a way to get around whatever benediction they were given that seems to have rendered them invincible. Which brings us to this week's verses. So as is our usual program, I will go through each of the verses and then we'll backtrack and look at each one of them in a little bit more detail. So picking it up from chapter 11, verse 35, returning to the narrator of the Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, "O king, after hearing these words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trembling Arjuna offered obeisances with folded hands again and again. He fearfully spoke to Lord Krishna in a faltering voice as follows." Text 36. Arjuna said, "O master of the senses, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid, and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done." Text 37. "O great one, greater than even Brahma, you are the original creator. Why then should they not offer their respectful obeisances unto you? O limitless one, God of gods, refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation." Verse 38. "You are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes. O limitless form, this whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you." Verse 39. "You are air, and you are the supreme controller. You are fire, you are water, and you are the moon. You are Brahma, the first living creature, and you are the great grandfather. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you 1,000 times, and again and yet again." Text 40. "Obeisances to you from the front, from behind, and from all sides. O unbounded power, you are the master of limitless might. You are all pervading, and thus you are everything." Text 41 and 42 together. "Thinking of you as my friend, I have rashly addressed you as, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, not knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. In jest, I have dishonored you as we relaxed, lay on the same bed, or sat or ate together, sometimes alone, and sometimes in front of many friends. O infallible one, please excuse me for all those offenses." Usually I am using my own translations. This week I am using translations from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. So now let's go back and we will look at these verses in some detail. So back to verse 35. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra. So Sanjaya, the secretary of the king, blind King Dhritarashtra, who is anxious to know of the events on the battlefield. Sanjaya has been privy to the vision of the universal form. He sees what Arjuna has seen. He has heard what Arjuna has been saying all along, the entire conversation. Now he relates Arjuna's prayers to Dhritarashtra with this preamble: O king, after hearing these words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trembling Arjuna offered obeisances with folded hands again and again. So offering obeisances, bowing down, he's taking a reverential position, literally folded hands, head bowed, bowing down, as one would expect when one realizes that they are in the presence of God. He fearfully spoke to Lord Krishna in a faltering voice as follows. And then Arjuna begins his prayer. So this is the first of 11 verses that will feature two elements of prayer. There are classically four elements of prayer: glorification, gratitude, repentance, and a request for a benediction. So in this cluster of verses, we will see two of those. Arjuna said, O master of the senses, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done. So here Arjuna begins to pray in a mood of awe and reverence, which is very different from the mood of friendship that they started out with. You may recall that Arjuna and Krishna are friends, they're cousins in terms of their family relationship, they're in-laws, they're buddies. And Krishna has taken the position of serving his friend Arjuna as his chariot driver. And the relationship changed back at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna takes the submissive position of asking Krishna to give him advice as to what he should do. And subsequently, we now see that upon the revelation of the universal form, Arjuna has gone from the position of hearing in a mood of submissive inquiry to worship in a mood of awe and reverence, and therefore prayers. The first word spoken in this work, the first Sanskrit word spoken in this verse is sthane, which means appropriate or rightly done. So in Sanskrit grammar, when we translate Sanskrit into English, what is at the beginning often shows up at the end, or what's at the end of the Sanskrit is reversed and shows up at the beginning. So here, the very first word, from a grammatical standpoint, shows up at the end. Appropriate. All is rightly done. This is the appropriate thing. What's appropriate? What's appropriate is that those of saintly character are thrilled to be in the presence of the Supreme Person, whereas those of unsaintly character are not so thrilled and run away. And that's appropriate because that's the nature of the relationship, that, you know, those who are of a state of mind of envy or defiance of the Supreme Person, they don't want the Supreme Person around, whereas those who aspire to elevated consciousness, saintly qualities, they're thrilled to hear about the Supreme Person, to say nothing of seeing the Supreme Person. So this is an appropriate reaction on the part of the different kinds of people based on their mentalities. People are grouped together according to consciousness. So those who are righteous are happily drawn towards the Supreme Person, whereas those of a demonic bent are frightened of the Supreme Person. The next verse. O Great One, greater even than Brahma, you are the original creator. Why then should they not offer respectful obeisances unto you? O Limitless One, God of gods, refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. So this verse essentially explains why everything is appropriate or rightly done from the previous verse, because this is a glorification of Krishna as the unlimited God of gods. The specific Sanskrit words that Arjuna uses here is Ananta, which means unlimited, Deva, Isha. Deva means divinity. Isha is the root of the Sanskrit word Ishvara, which means the Lord. So Deva Isha means the Lord of the gods, the supreme God of all gods. The next Sanskrit word is Jagat Nivasa. So Jagat means universe, Nivasa means resting place. So the refuge of the universe. The other words that Arjuna uses here, Aksharam, meaning imperishable, and an interesting compound word, Sat Asat. Sat usually means eternal and Asat means not eternal. But here the meaning is slightly different. Here, Sat refers to the effect and Asat refers to the cause to that effect. So here he is saying that Krishna is the ultimate cause of all effects, and yet is, the next phrase, tat param, transcendental to cause and effect, being the source of both. So, next verse. This is 38. You are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifest cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes. The material modes refers to the three qualities of material nature, or gunas. Krishna has already stated, prior to showing Arjuna his universal form, that these three qualities of material nature are the components, the elemental building blocks of the material energy. And this is his own divine energy. The Sanskrit phrase is Daivi Hyesha Gunamayi. My separated material energy is made up of these three different qualities or gunas. O limitless form, this whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. So here's the far out thing, that Krishna is transcendental to these modes of material nature. He can enter into his own energy and not be affected by that energy, whereas we, having entered into that energy, are very much affected by that energy. So here's a little bit of commentary from Ramanuja, one of the acharyas in the Vaishnava lineage of devotees of Vishnu. He asked the question, what in the universe and all creation is not a part of the Supreme Lord Krishna? Well, I don't think you can come up with anything really that is not a part. So this is kind of an interesting sort of Vedic koan as opposed to a Zen koan. Everything is Krishna, yet nothing is Krishna except for Krishna himself. So saying that everything is Krishna doesn't mean that every part is Krishna. So it would be more correct to say Krishna is everything, as opposed to everything is Krishna. He is the knower of all that is known and knowable. He abides as the Atma, or eternal soul, within all living entities, the Param Atma. He is the highest goal, and yet he is beyond the highest goal. All existences, past, present, and future, sentient as well as insentient, are with the Supreme Lord, and he resides within them as the eternal principle in the form of the Param Atma. Hence, all such terms as eternal, unlimited, imperishable, indestructible, etc., refer exclusively to him. In other words, Krishna is the only one about whom you can say, well, he's unlimited, he's indestructible, he's imperishable. This is a nice illustration of the components of glorification, which is to say, a recitation of the unsurpassed and unsurpassable qualities of the person to whom you are praying. So even if you were offering prayers to, say, a mundane person, you would do so by recounting their glories, their opulences, their victories, their power, their beauty, whatever it is that they've got. You know, if you want a favor from a wealthy person, then you glorify them by saying how wealthy they are and how magnanimous they are. If you want a favor from someone who has influence, you glorify the power that they have, the influence that they have, and how kind they are to use that influence on your behalf, that sort of thing. So this is standard operating procedure for glorifying someone, is you recite their qualities. So in the case of engaging in a prayer to the Supreme Person, the recitation of their qualities is a natural form of glorification. So what does this have to do with yoga? Yoga means union. How does one approach the ultimate goal, the Supreme Person, for union? Well, when one becomes cognizant of the position of the person that you are approaching through your yoga practice, if in fact you are practicing devotional yoga, and you become cognizant of the nature of the relationship, then before you can have anything approximating an intimate friendship, you have to go through this recognition of the position and character and nature of the person that you're approaching. One of the interesting things that I came across while I was doing my homework to prepare for our class this evening was I did a Google search on yoga and prayer. And I came across a fair number of individual yoga teachers and organizations that, not surprisingly here in America, focus on a connection between Christianity and yoga, and very specifically about how to make one's yoga practice part of one's prayer practice. There is also a connection to the Christian contemplative tradition of placing the mind in the heart. Asana is preparation for pranayama. So the physical postures our preparation for being able to sit still and control the life force, or to liberate the life force through the control of the breath, which is the preparatory stage for meditation. And the meditation in yoga is object-oriented meditation. The object one is advised to meditate on is the Supreme Person, and the manner in which one meditates is through mantra, the recitation of Om, or another mantra that connects one to the Supreme Person. Now, in my personal practice, I chant the Hari-kirtana mantra, and before I chant in the morning, I spend just a couple of minutes engaged in prayer so that my mantra meditation will be prayerful. And I go through the four attributes, or the four features of prayer that I mentioned earlier, which begin with glorification. I try to recall, just as Arjuna is here, I try to recall what are the characteristics of the person that I am going to be meditating on through the sound vibration of their name. How fortunate am I that I have an opportunity to engage in meditation on this person and become and move closer to them. Therefore, I express gratitude for my situation. I express some remorse for the fact that I'm such a lazy bones, that I don't actually take advantage of my good fortune, or at least I have not in the past been as proactive as I could have been, even though I had the same opportunity and knew what I could be doing. And there's a request for benediction. The benediction is, that I request is, please purify my heart so that, and clarify my mind so that I can stay fixed in meditation on you through your sound vibration, and by that practice, develop feelings of affection, a desire to be close to you. So that's my personal practice, and how I personally relate the practice of prayer to the practice of yoga. And it was very enlivening. It was very, very encouraging, inspiring to see how other yogis whose form of faith is a little different from mine incorporate this same idea of prayer into their yoga practice. And reading about how they do it, seeing some videos of how someone can design an asana practice to correspond with the Psalms. It was cool. It was really, really interesting to see. And I wasn't really aware that there were as many people out there doing that sort of thing as there apparently are. If you have any questions or comments, you can pop them into the chat or into the Q&A box. Just go ahead and do that, and I'll be happy to field them. Meanwhile, moving on to verse 39. Arjuna continues with his glorification. You are air, and you are the supreme controller. You are fire. You are water, and you are the moon. You are Brahma, the first living creature, and you are the great-grandfather. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you 1,000 times, and again and yet again. So what Arjuna is doing here is inferring that Lord Krishna is the composite total of all the demigods. So air, Vayu, the god of the wind, Yama, when he uses the word controller. Yama means to control or restrain. Yamaraj is the demigod in charge of restraining those whose karma is such that they will have to take another birth and their circumstances might not be so fortunate. Agni, you are fire, the god of fire. Varuna, the demigod of the waters. Shasha Anka, the moon. Prajapati, Brahma. So here, Brahma, who appears in the lotus flower that sprouts of the navel of Lord Vishnu, who is an expansion of Krishna. Arjuna here is saying, you are Brahma and you are the source of Brahma. You are the grandsire, and yet again, you are the great grandsire. Text 40. Obeisances to you from the front, from behind, and from all sides. O unbounded power, you are the master of limitless might. You are all-pervading, and thus you are everything. So again, the idea that Krishna is everything, but not everything is Krishna. Only Krishna is Krishna. And that brings us to verses 41 and 2, and these are the two verses that we are going to chant together. So I will share my screen with you once again. And let's take a look at the transliterated Sanskrit together, just to make sure we have all of our diacritics accounted for, so we know what the proper pronunciation will be. We pronounce every letter that we see in transliterated Sanskrit, so H's that come after consonants really will mean that you put some air after that consonant. The dot over an M indicates closure of the tongue to the roof of the mouth while the lips come together. So a little more of a nasal sound. Dots. The dot under the R is a flick of the tongue off of the cliff behind the ridge behind your teeth. So rather than an sound, it's a ra. So here we see the name Krishna. So the dot under the S is an SH sound. The N with the dot under it, the tongue stays in that spot back by the center of the roof of your mouth. And in this verse, that pretty much takes care of it. So this is verse 41. I will chant each line. You chant the line back. Sakheti matva prasabham yaduktam He Krishna, He Yadava, He Sakheti. Ajanata mahimanam tavedam. Maya pramadat pranayena vapi. Verse 42, remember C's are always CH sounds, ch, or more properly, cha. You roll your tongue back into the center of the roof of your mouth. The apostrophe before a letter indicates a vowel was dropped out in order to now combine the word in front of the apostrophe with the word that preceded it. The accent mark over an S indicates a deeper SH sound coming from the back of one's mouth, as opposed to sh. Y's at the end of a word tend to roll right into the vowel that begins the next word afterwards. So rather than being an E sound, it's a Y sound that goes right into the next word. And I think that covers it, hopefully. So here we go. I chant one line, you chant each line back. Yaksha vahasartama satkritosi. Vihadashayasana bhojaneshu. Ekotavapyachyuta tat samaksham. tat kshamaye tvam aham aprameyam. Translations. Thinking of you as my friend, I have rashly addressed you, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, not knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. In jest, I have dishonored you as we relaxed, lay on the same bed, or sat or ate together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. O infallible one, please excuse me for all those offenses. So this is the aspect of prayer: repentance, remorse, asking for forgiveness. And this is what Arjuna is actually afraid of. He's not afraid of death. He's not afraid of time. He's not afraid of the all-powerful manifestation of God in the world. He's afraid that he's committed an offense. He's insulted Krishna by being so casual. You know, it's like touching the queen. You just don't do that. So similarly, he now realizes that the person that he's joked with, made fun of in front of his buddies, is the supreme person. Let's look a little more closely at how he expresses this. Under the influence, there's two kinds of illusion. And Arjuna has been under the influence of yoga maya, the kind of illusion that creates a sense of proximity, intimacy, as opposed to mahamaya, the covering potency that creates distance. So he, in his illusion of that facilitates friendliness, proximity, he hangs out with Krishna and he speaks to him and he calls him by his name Krishna, as opposed to a more honorific version like Shri Krishna. Remember, when Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita, his speech is preceded by the very honorific Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the blessed Lord vocalized, or the beautiful Lord vocalized. So there's clearly, from the Bhagavad Gita standpoint, from the very beginning, the recognition of Krishna's position. But now, here we are all the way in the 11th chapter, we're more than halfway through the Bhagavad Gita, and only now does Arjuna truly realize who his friend is, and that he's been talking to him in a casual way. He also has indicated that by calling him Krishna, he indicates that Krishna is the son of Vasudeva, or Vasudeva. Vasudeva means the son of Vasudeva. Well, Vasudeva, Krishna's father, he's a warrior class, but kind of not like a kind of a second-rate warrior class guy. He's really a bureaucrat in the administrative affairs of government, as opposed to Arjuna's father, who was a warrior king, Pandu. So, you know, Arjuna technically is in a higher position. Same thing with the name Yadava, indicating Krishna is a part of the Yadu dynasty that is not qualified to hold a position of ruler, whereas Arjuna, whom Krishna refers to as Bharat, indicating his royal lineage, is technically fit to be king, be the ruler. This is what the Battle of Kurukshetra is all about, is who's going to be the king. So Arjuna has been talking to Krishna kind of like, even though I'm like higher than you, I'll be your friend. Like I'm doing you a favor by being your friend because I'm actually in a higher social position. And now he realizes that his social position doesn't mean anything compared to Krishna, because Krishna is God. So that's what Arjuna's real concern is, and this will come back in subsequent verses where Arjuna will continue his prayers. So let's take a look at this transformation. So in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the very first chapter, we find Krishna and Arjuna together on the chariot. And Krishna has taken the subordinate position of the chariot driver, the chauffeur, kind of a low position. He has become the servant of Arjuna. And they blow their conch shells just as the battle is about to begin, and the sound of their conch shells, which are characterized as transcendental, breaks the hearts of the opposing army. But then when Arjuna asks Krishna to draw his chariot out into the center of the battlefield so that he can see who has come to this battlefield for the sake of fighting to the death, he has what amounts to a nervous breakdown and can't continue. He's frozen in confusion and indecision. And he asks Krishna for guidance, to tell him what to do, what is the conclusive action that he should take, or to tell him conclusively what he should do. And so Arjuna takes the position of a disciple, and Krishna then happily takes the position of the guru or the teacher and reminds Arjuna of what he has forgotten, the transcendental nature of the soul, the temporary nature of the body, the relationship between the self and the supreme self, and the fact that one who engages in one's duty with compassionate detachment is higher than one who seeks to avoid such duties. Then, at Arjuna's request, having been arrived at a point of being convinced that Krishna is right, Arjuna seeks to know more. So for the devotional yogi, they highlight the crescendo of the Bhagavad Gita is in the 10th chapter, where Krishna gives his essential instructions, 4 essential instructions around which the entire Gita revolves, and the one principal instruction which will be repeated in the 18th chapter, that one should simply become Krishna's devotee and let Krishna take care of the results of actions rather than try to be the controller of actions. So Arjuna then requests, please let me see how it is that you enter into and pervade this whole universe. And Krishna shows him the universal form. And then you'll notice how Arjuna's mood changes from being a friend to being a disciple to being a worshiper. What we'll see in verses coming up is that Arjuna asks Krishna to please put this vision away, show him on the way back to his 2-armed form, his regular human-like form, his lovable, beautiful form, his 4-armed form as Vishnu. And now everything is different, except that when it's all over, Krishna will return to his role as the chariot driver, and Arjuna, now having his doubts slashed by the weapon of knowledge, informed by an understanding of yoga, engages in the battle. Now, if you just took the first image and the last image, it looks kind of like nothing happened. But everything is different. Transformation goes through stages. The first stage is order, the known world. The second stage is disorder. Everything falls apart, everything goes haywire. And then reorder. Everything comes back together, but the order is different. It's just like you clean out your closet. There's order in the beginning. You have to make it disordered in order to reorganize it, get rid of what you don't need, properly organize what you do, and then put it all back together. And then it's ordered again, but now it's a different kind of order. So similarly, Arjuna goes through these stages of order or known, disorder, unknown, and order or revelation, new knowledge that he then can take back into the known world and offer as a gift, because you have to pass it forward. So that is our class for this evening. We've spoken about the role of prayer in yoga, what Arjuna is really afraid of, and we also spoke about the transformation that occurs specifically as the high point in this chapter. So this is why this chapter is considered to be the climax of the Bhagavad Gita, because this is where the pinnacle of that transformation is, even though the essential instruction, the most important instruction, was given in the previous chapter. So if there are any questions or comments that you have about what we've done this evening, please go ahead, and we have just a couple of minutes left for me to answer them or respond to your comments if you have any. Meanwhile, I thought I would share these URLs with you. It's a good thing you can play this back and freeze the frame, because unless you can write very, very quickly, I'm not going to be able to leave this all on the screen for you for that long. I'll read it off for those of you who are listening. These are 3 interesting websites that I found when I was searching prayer and yoga. So Yoga International has an interesting article. So it's yoga-international.com/articles/view/q-a-does-prayer-have-the-practice-of-yoga. So QA, so it's in their Q&A section, does prayer have a place in the practice of yoga? Then there is the Christian Yoga Association.org. So it's all one word, Christian Yoga Association.org. And the particular page I found interesting there was the page /meditation-and-prayer. And then finally, christianspracticingyoga.com. So once again, all one word. And I particularly looked at a page called Asana and Christianity. So here are 3 places you can go just to see what other people are thinking about the relationship of prayer and yoga. If you have any questions that come up later, or you're watching this on the recording, then please send me your questions, hari@hari-kirtana.com. Next week, we will continue with Arjuna's prayers. We'll finish those up. We will talk a little bit about the 4-armed form of Vishnu that Krishna reveals to Arjuna on the way back to his human-like 2-armed form. We will cover verses 43 through 49. And that's it for this evening. I thank you all very, very much for choosing to spend your time with me. It's always great to have you here, and wonderful to be here with you. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, rest of your week, rest of your life. And I hope to see you all again next time. Have a nice night.